He's back for those of you who missed him. Papo Furado is special, answering 100 questions about Harry Potter. And let's not waste too much time. It's 100 questions, it's a longer video. Let's get right to the first one, which is from this person named Nagimi. Hi Kako, how are you? I'm good. And you? Congratulations on the Little Witch. I'm a big fan of your work. Thank you very much. Does a Horcrux affect a person based on who the Horcruxes belong to? Since Voldemort was a dark wizard, is that why they affected others that way? And if so, are they affected according to the character of the person? Look, no, there isn't. We don't have a comparison with other Horcruxes and with other wizards who made Horcruxes, because the only person we know who made Horcruxes besides Voldemort was Erpo the Foul himself, who was the first creator of the Horcrux. We don't know of any other wizard who has done such an evil practice, so that's why we can't compare, but I don't think so.
A Horcrux, since it's an artifact that already comes from a very evil intention, I think it already affects the person, no matter who made that Horcrux.
One thing is for sure, out of Voldemort's Horcruxes, the diary was the most persuasive, but that was much more a property of the diary itself, of how Tom Riddle enchanted that diary, than the fact that it was a Horcrux. Of course, being a Horcrux did help, yes, but it's much more a property of the diary to do that. The locket also affected, whoever used it precisely because they were using it, putting it around their neck and all.
But I believe that any Horcrux would have that effect, of making the person kind of crazy like that. And the next question is from Heloisa. Hi Kako, how are you? I'm good. And you?
So, why aren't there more records, photos, letters, books, etc. of Lillian and Tiago at Hogwarts and in general? After all, they were extremely strong and powerful wizards, as well as exceptional students. P.S. I wish we could have seen Harry getting to know them more. Look, here we might fall into the trap of thinking, wow, they were powerful, so they were historical figures. They weren't powerful. Yes, they were very talented wizards, studious, but they were super young, right? I don't think they had any reason to stand out that much. Let's take as an example, like, in your school, the school you went to. For sure, there were people at your school who stood out in life there before you. Did you know about them? Were they outstanding in any way?
Were they there in the records, in photos, in anything? It's really hard for that to happen, So I think that's really the reason.
Because even though they were exceptional, according to those who lived with them, they were ordinary people. They were just regular wizards there, not like Dumbledore, who, well, is super famous and all. They became much more famous after Voldemort killed those two people. I think that's the main reason. And then, after they were killed, I think the spotlight was much more on Harry, right? Who survived and all. It's just that Harry is even mentioned in some modern books, which Hermione points out right away on the Hogwarts Express, right? But the Potters themselves, the parents, aren't talked about much besides Harry. Because Harry was the big mystery there, right? That's at least what I believe, the reason why I think it is. Diana asked. So, Kako, how are you? I'm good, and you? There's already the Reparo spell. Okay, why don't the Weasleys use it on their school supplies, since they're second-hand? Harry uses the spell to fix his wand, which is a magical object, so it should work perfectly on regular objects. Hugs. Diana, here's the thing. Harry does use the Reparo spell on his wand, but he uses it with the Elder Wand, not just any wand. In fact, when he tries to fix it with other wands, he can't do it. And the Reparo spell repairs what's broken. It doesn't restore. If something breaks, you use the Reparo spell, it fixes it. It doesn't mean it's going to be restored, like brand new, Like Harry. Harry's wand, when he fixed it, it's not like he had just bought it at that moment and it was shining brand new. So, I think for clothes, it wouldn't work that well, Because the clothes weren't damaged, they were just more worn, that's all. Victor Tambaskia said the following. I saw a theory that says that, to make a Horcrux, one of the disgusting things in the ritual is cannibalism. The theory says that Harry became a Horcrux because Voldemort had already completed the ritual, and the cannibalism came from the piece of skin from the forehead that became the lightning scar. What do you think? I think it's complete madness. That lightning bolt simply appeared because that's where the soul, the piece of Voldemort's soul, enters Harry. So there's no way he committed cannibalism, that he left that lightning bolt scar there. Wow, let me eat this little piece of skin here. Yum, 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 yum. No, That's not it. Especially because Voldemort made the Horcrux with the death of Moaning Myrtle, and her body didn't have any marks. There was nothing, you know? So, no. I think it could even involve. I made a theory once here about cannibalism being part of the ritual, but because it's not necessarily at the moment of death that it's used, right? Killing her isn't enough. You must use her death to create the Horcrux. So much so that Voldemort, still known as Tom Riddle, he kills his father, and only afterwards does he turn the ring into a Horcrux. He doesn't do it at the same time, right?
He goes and asks Slughorn if it was possible to make more than one and all that.
So I think that cannibalism, if it's done after some time, you might even have to dig up the body or something like that, you know? It could even be. But I don't think the scar happened because of that, no. Because we know the scar is there like that, because that's where Voldemort's soul entered. TW, in the fight with Seth Potter, why didn't they just apparate to the burrow instead of flying there on broomsticks? Why didn't they make a port key? I have a lot of questions about apparition. Why didn't Harry's parents apparate away when Voldemort approached them? Well, those are very fair, very valid questions. But here's the thing. Apparition is traceable, and port keys are also traceable. They didn't want Harry to be tracked during the transport to the burrow. So that's why they use untraceable means, like brooms, thestrals, and so on, and they fly. Now, as for why Harry's parents didn't apparate, my guess is that since Harry was a baby, apparition could be dangerous. Apparating with a baby can be very dangerous. So I think that's why. Also, there's flue powder, right? Which is the transportation through fireplaces. And one of the points mentioned in the text about flue powder is that flue powder was a much more viable option for many wizards, because it wasn't as risky as apparition, since children and the elderly could use it. So, it's understood that apparition, because it's dangerous, especially in a moment of escape or desperation, can end up causing harm. Didn't Ron end up splinched when escaping from the Ministry because Yaxley grabbed them? So, just imagine apparating with a baby. For me, that's why they didn't apparate. João Vinicius Vasquez. Hi, Kako. Congrats on the channel and your daughter. Thank you very much. I'd like to know if there are any mentions in the books or movies of the wizarding world about the story of Hogwarts legacy. I know the game's story takes place long before Voldemort, right? Thanks, Kako. Man, yes, the story takes place way before Voldemort. Yeah, like, way before. No, about 40 years before. 40 years, about 30 years before Voldemort was born. Voldemort was born in 1926, and the story takes place in 1991. Yeah, about 30 years or so. But no, it's not in the story, in the books. Like, Hogwarts Legacy has a lot of references. Obviously, from the books, right. A lot of things there. The foundation of the construction of the Hogwarts Legacy universe comes from the books, from the entire Harry Potter series. But we don't have anything in the books. Yeah, from the main story of Hogwarts Legacy, they took elements from the story, like the goblin and wizard conflict, added them to the game, and built a story around that. So, it's part of the expanded Harry Potter universe. William Barbosa. Hey, Kako, how are you? I'm good, and you? Hope you're well. I'm great, my friend. So, there's a theory that the loyalty of the Elder Wand goes to the one who proves themselves strong without needing to kill. From Dumbledore to Harry, none of them killed the previous owners. Some stole it and others disarmed them. Yeah, actually, that's not really a theory. That's pretty much how it works, right? The wand, there's this legend that you have to kill the previous master, but that's not true.
The wand chooses the wizard, and it will choose the wizard it considers most worthy to possess it.
And actually, those who don't kill, who simply manage to defeat their opponents without killing Dumbledore, she considered worthy, and Harry as well. So, it's exactly because Harry refuses to kill, for being the Master of Death, that the wand chooses Harry, right? After Harry disarms Draco, right? Subdues Draco, the wand transfers its loyalty to Harry. And that's exactly one of the points that Dumbledore even talks about, right? Man, you are the Master of Death, you gather the relics, but not to try to cheat death or anything like that. You know, you accept when it's your time to die, and that makes all the difference. Andre Santos Aquilino. Hey, Kako, how's it going? All good. Was Dumbledore an animagus? If so, what animal did he transform into? Look, there's no mention. Nothing official about Dumbledore being an animagus, okay? Nothing. Nothing at all. There are theories, yes, that say Dumbledore was an animagus and transformed into a phoenix. But that's just a theory. There's no such information anywhere, nowhere official. Okay? Ivandro. Kako. Okay? Okay, we know that the shield charm only blocks minor and medium power spells. So how do you magically block or deflect powerful spells? Like the one Bella deflected from Dumbledore in the Death Chamber. For sure, Dumbledore's spell wasn't medium power. So it's not that the shield charm only protects against small and medium spells. Just like there's a shield that protects, the shield charm that protects against weaker spells, there are also more powerful shields. Powerful ones that protect against more powerful spells. So it's kind of a relative thing. There are exceptions for some spells. For example, Avada Kedavra. No shield can block it. No shield charm can stop it, right?
You can bring an object in front of you so the spell hits it, and then you can protect yourself.
But you can't cast a shield like Protego or something to stop Avada Kedavra, right? So there are levels. There are levels. Just like there are weaker shields, there are stronger ones. Maria sent, "Hey, Kako, how are you? I'm good, and you? How's the family? They're doing great." Right now, Katerina is taking a nap, and my wife is also napping. It's a holiday, right? 3 in the afternoon, after lunch, you get that sleepy feeling, and I'm here recording. So, who currently possesses the Elder Wand? Because in The Cursed Child, Delphi disarms Harry. And what happens when the owner of the Elder Wand dies by accident or natural causes? Can anyone become the new owner? So, the point isn't just to disarm the owner of the wand, right?
If the wand doesn't recognize that person's power, doesn't acknowledge them as its master, it doesn't matter. You can't just disarm someone and expect something to happen if the wand doesn't accept it.
So, the wand still belonged to Harry. And it was buried there, right? In Dumbledore's tomb. If Harry dies of natural causes, yes, the wand's cycle is broken. That cycle of getting a new master is broken. Jose Nito Lima. Kako, how did Dobby and Harry find Shell Cottage if Bill was the secret keeper and hadn't told them? That's a good question too. And for me, what happens is, Ron says, Shell Cottage is on the outskirts, over there in the neighborhood. Right, on the outskirts of that place. So, like, he doesn't say exactly where it is. Like, Shell Cottage on such and such street, such and such square, number whatever. He doesn't say that, he just says, well, on the outskirts. And then, when they get there, from inside, Bill ends up seeing all of them and comes out and welcomes everyone. So I think that's how it was. Brenda Costa. Hi, Kako. Do you think J.K. Rowling created important Hufflepuff characters, like Cedric and Newt Scamander, as a way to redeem Hufflepuff, which was talked about so badly at the beginning? I don't think so. I think it's just that Hufflepuff has a more low-key perspective, you know, without much spotlight, without having a big highlight. Because the story is told from Harry's point of view, right? The information he gets comes from people who aren't in that house. So I don't think she did that just to redeem them. It's because she had a plan. Those characters are from that house, and that's it. Guilherme. Hello, Kako. I hope you and your family are well. Thank you very much. I don't know if you've already answered this, but has there ever been a wizard or witch who was kind of an anti-hero? Someone who tried to kill Voldemort? After all, Voldemort is extremely overpowered. But did anyone try to use any curse on Voldemort? Well, directly? No. Yeah, but we have Regulus Black. Regulus Black, Sirius's brother.
I think Regulus Black can be considered an anti-hero precisely because he starts out as a Death Eater and then he tries to destroy Voldemort, right? And he ends up giving his own life for it.
But he didn't fight Voldemort directly. Oscar Torres. Hey there, wizard. How's it going? Kako, how do brooms work in Quidditch? Considering that there are brooms that are faster than others, wouldn't that be unfair or unsportsmanlike? Man, isn't that a difference between us? That's pretty crazy, right? Come on, the Nimbus 2000 reaches 94 kilometers, the Firebolt to 96, you know? It's not that big of a difference, so I don't think it makes it that unsportsmanlike. Of course, in some cases it can give an advantage, but that's the game, you know? That's sports, that's how it is. Jessica Januario. Hi, Kako, how are you? I'm good, and you? Could it be possible to use the pensive and the faux glass? To confirm the fact and clear Sirius's name? I watch your channel here from China. Congratulations on the content. Oh, that's cool.
Big hug to everyone who watches Calderon Furado from other parts of the world. Kisses. Thank you for the support. Yes, the pensive and the faux glass could be used.
The problem is, pensives and faux glasses aren't used in hearings. First of all, Sirius didn't even have one, right? They're not used because these artifacts can be tampered with. Thoughts can be altered, like we see Slughorn doing, changing his own memories. Veritaserum can also be bypassed, because if the wizard believes that what he's saying is true, even if it's not, then he'll speak as if it were true. You know, it's not something that works 100% as expected. So, since it can be bypassed, Occlumen's wizards can also get around Veritaserum. That's why they don't use it, you know? Because it can lead to fraud. The next question is from @1B or Dan3. Hey, Kako, how are you? I'm good. And you? Do you think Dumbledore told the Potters, Lily and James, about the prophecy?
Or did he just hide them and make something up to cover up the truth? No, I think they did know about the prophecy. I think they were told, yes.
Dumbledore did tell James and Lily about the prophecy, and that's why they went into hiding. A Dominic saw it call. Oh, I thought it was Dominic McLaughlin, Harry himself. Hi, Kako, how are you? I'm good. I'm reading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and I saw that Tonks helped Harry pack his bags using magic. Even after Harry received a message from Sirius and Arthur asking him not to do it, because he risked being expelled. Is this a plot hole or did I misunderstand? Congratulations on the channel. My friend, you are absolutely right. This is a plot hole, yes. I've already talked about this in the segment Doesn't Make Sense. Things that don't make sense in Harry Potter. And it doesn't make any sense for Tonks to do magic there and help Harry, since the Ministry would be able to identify it, because it's not about who does the magic. It's about magic being done near a minor, so Harry was already in trouble there for having used magic. He was simply being the victim of a campaign by the Ministry that was trying to silence him and make him look crazy. So, any extra reason to expel him, they would use it. And Tonks using magic there in the Dursleys' house would definitely be one of those reasons.
But that's a plot hole. The author just didn't think about it and put that part in the book. Guilherme Correa. Hi, Kako. How are you? I'm good. And you?
How did Fred and George learn to use the Marauders map? I believe I've answered this question here several times. In fact, there's even a Papo Furado episode with that title. But let's go. Yeah, Fred and George got the Marauders map from Filch's office in their first year. And then they kept trying to use it to figure out how to open it. And the Marauders themselves were helping. Just like they insulted Snape, they helped Fred and George because they recognized that they had the same vibe as the Marauders. So, that's how it was. They kept trying, following the Marauders' hints until they finally managed to understand how it worked. Rodrigo De Luca, Kako. In the movie, when Harry talks to Nagini disguised as Bathilda Bagshot, she sees him wearing the Slytherin locket. By any chance, does she see it in the book too? If so, why didn't she tell Voldemort about it?
He would have found out that his Horcruxes were being hunted earlier. Very, very difficult question. Good question.
If I'm not mistaken, she only sees the locket in the movie. I think in the book, it's under Harry's shirt, under his sweater. I'll even check that here in the book. Wait a second. Let's see here. Opening Half-Blood Prince. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Dude, this isn't Half-Blood Prince, right? It's Deathly Hallows. Duh. See, she doesn't see the locket, because in this part here, look, when Harry asks, Bathilda, she felt it again. Harry noticed the presence of the locket against his skin. The thing inside it, which sometimes throbbed, had just awakened. He could feel it pulsing through the cold gold. Did she realize that the thing that would destroy her was so close? Bathilda shuffled past them, pushing Hermione aside as if she hadn't seen her, and disappeared, probably into a sitting room. Bathilda was walking unsteadily. I don't know what, man. Let me see if there's any part here that talks about it later. Yeah, the sweater really was tucked in, see? Right?
In this other part, it says, so, she closed her eyes, and several things happened at the same time. Harry's scar burned painfully.
The Horcrux vibrated so much that the front of the boy's sweater actually moved. So if it moved, it's because it was underneath, so she didn't see it, okay? Just so we can confirm everything here, and not leave anything unconfirmed. So, this is really from the movies. The next question is from F.F. Morchell. Hey, Kako, how are you and your family? Congratulations on the little witch. Hey man, all good? And you, are you okay? Considering the question from the episode on July 11th, 2024 about lycanthropy, polyjuice potion, when an animagus takes the potion while it's in effect, can they still transform? Look, that's a really good question, and I know what you're talking about. They asked if a werewolf could, right? If the polyjuice potion would work on a werewolf. About animagus, I don't think it would make a difference. Because becoming an animagus is something that comes from the wizard. It's the wizard's own power. And the polyjuice potion, it only changes the appearance. It only changes the wizard's appearance. He doesn't get the power of the person he's transforming into. So, most likely, the person who is an animagus and takes the polyjuice potion should still have the ability to transform into an animagus. Now, whether this would happen under the effect of the polyjuice potion, if there's anything that would prevent it, I can't confirm for sure. What we can say for sure here is, the polyjuice potion doesn't give someone another person's powers, only their appearance. The power to transform as an animagus belongs to the person. So, for example, if the person you're turning into is an animagus, you don't get the power to transform into an animagus. Only the other person has that. You'll just have the other person's appearance, you understand? If you're an animagus and use polyjuice potion to become someone else, you still keep your animagus power, understand? Paula Xavier. Hi, how are you? I love your work and I've been following you since the beginning. Without further ado, Kako, can you hear the whole plot in the song Hedwig's theme? It seems like it tells the whole story with the orchestra. Does that make sense? Thank you for your dedication and congratulations on your beautiful family. Mischief managed. What an interesting thing. What an interesting message. To be honest, I never thought about that.
I love listening to the Harry Potter soundtrack, but I think for me, it's so connected to the story itself that those moments come to me while I'm listening.
Like, I know that this song, this part of the music is at a certain moment in the movie. I never thought of it that way. It's interesting and makes sense. The next question is from someone who didn't enter their name.
And it was the following. If Lillian's sacrifice was present in Harry's blood, wouldn't it be possible for Dumbledore to perform extension charms like the ones he used on the house on Privet Drive, in other places Harry visited? Or maybe even on Harry himself?
Actually, he uses Petunia's connection with Lillian and extends that protection to Petunia's house.
So Harry was protected there because Lillian's and Petunia's blood. They were sisters, so they shared the same blood, right? Not literally the same, of course. Each had their own blood, but blood that came from the same place, so it couldn't be extended to other places by putting it in Harry himself. Otherwise, maybe Dumbledore would have done it.
Only the Welves. Hi, Kako. How are you? Congratulations on your family. I'm good. And you? Thank you.
I don't remember if you've already answered, but could that piece of Voldemort's soul in limbo still be there, since his soul was so deteriorated that it couldn't move on, and would be trapped there forever? That's exactly what happens. The piece of Voldemort's soul that's there in limbo stays there forever. There's no moving on, nothing. He will live in that state of limbo and suffering for eternity. Lucas Avalar. Good evening, Kako. It's me again. When Harry becomes invisible for the first time, going into the restricted section, he drops the lamp, and the caretaker finds it and shows it to Snape, and everyone goes running after a student out of bed. The question is, why didn't the scene continue? Because the scene follows Harry as he accidentally finds the mirror of Erised, right? And then, the teachers keep searching there, but the scene doesn't show the outcome. They must have just given up. Well, they didn't find anyone. That's it. Alright, let's all go to bed. Kellen Louisa. Hi, Kako. How are you? I'm good. And you? I'd like to know what instrument that is in Dumbledore's office mentioned in Order of the Phoenix, Chapter 22, where he sees the smoke snake and says, naturally, but divided in essence. Man, that's really cool, this question.
The author herself already answered this in a chat many years ago, and I don't know if I remember her answer exactly.
But that was something about Voldemort's soul being divided. I don't know what artifact that was, right? Which artifact exactly was that, if it was created by Dumbledore himself? But the point is, Dumbledore was talking about Voldemort's soul when he realizes it's the snake that attacks, and that Harry has the vision as if he were the snake. That's when he understands that everything is connected, and that's why he says, right, it's naturally, but divided in essence. In the essence of the soul, you know? Rodrigo de Luca. Kako, in the movie, when Harry talks to Nagini disguised as Bathilda Bagshot, she sees him wearing the locket turned off. Slytherin. Has this question already been asked, hasn't it? This question has already been asked. That was question number 19. Why is this question here again? Well, okay, let's take this question out. Two identical questions came up.
All right, John Wayne. Hey, Kako, how are you? I'm good, and you? What if the muggle parents of a wizard child refuse to keep the secret of the wizarding world?
And if those parents force the child to demonstrate their magical abilities publicly in front of muggles, what would happen? Well, all we know is that from the moment the parents of a wizard child are informed that their child is a wizard, they become subject to the statute of secrecy, right? Breaking the statute of secrecy will result in legal punishment. I don't know if they'll be imprisoned, if they'll be fined, what exactly happens, but they will be punished. Luis Grando. Hey, Kako, how are you? I have a question. Couldn't Voldemort have hidden the Horcrux, or more than one, anywhere, and protected the place with the Fidelius charm? If so, why didn't he do it? He could have. He could have, but the thing is, to use the Fidelius charm, he would have to make someone the secret keeper. Could he make himself the secret keeper? Probably, but I think that Voldemort, the thing about Voldemort is that he was so full of himself that he didn't think anyone would ever find his stuff. So he protects it in this super awesome way, figures he's crushed it, and just goes on with his life, you know? Sophia Caffel. Given the fact that Harry was the Horcrux and had Voldemort's aged soul inside him, could he have crossed that age line that Dumbledore made in Goblet of Fire? I really don't think so, okay? And why do I think not? The soul, the piece of Voldemort's soul inside Harry, doesn't make Harry Voldemort, right? It does make Harry share some abilities with Voldemort, like speaking to snakes and having that connection with Voldemort. But that's it, just that. That doesn't shape Harry as a person.
So I don't believe that would interfere with Harry's age.
After all, Harry has the trace, right? That tracking spell. So if the part of his soul, Voldemort's, interfered with Harry's age, then the tracking spell shouldn't work, right? To the point that Harry would pass out of the age range and not be identified. So the tracker shouldn't work either, since it detects magic by underage wizards. Hilda asked the following. Hi, Kako, how are you? I'm good, and you? When Harry turned 17, Lily's protection ended, right? So shouldn't it have also ended in Voldemort's blood, since he had Harry's blood? The protection ends at the house on Privet Drive.
Not Lily's protection itself. That's not what ends. Lily's protection is still there in Harry.
And also, when Voldemort takes Harry's blood to return, the protection was still active, so that counts, you know? The protection stops being valid from the extension that Dumbledore made there at Petunia's house when she accepts Harry. He even says it, right? In the book, it says, the protection will end in two ways, when you turn 17 and when you no longer call this place home. So both things happen, right? But the protection in Voldemort is still there. The protection of Harry in Voldemort's blood, because Voldemort used Harry's blood to return when the protection was still active.
Next question from Ana Luisa Cherego. Hi, Kako.
We know that the author isn't good with numbers and said that in Great Britain there would be around 3,000 wizards. That's an incredibly low number, even if there are only a few. What do you think makes sense? I believe there should be more, around 5 to 10,000 to match the description in the story. Look, honestly, J.K. Rowling herself said she's bad with numbers, right? But if she's bad, I'm even worse. I'm worse, so I won't be able to help you with this, okay? I don't know if for you think it makes sense to be 5 to 10,000, I believe it. I think 3,000 would make sense, because wizards are much fewer in number than muggles, right? But I don't know, honestly, I wouldn't really be able to tell you. Like, man, I think this number here is the ideal number, you know? No, really, I couldn't, because I'm terrible at math. Kaike Akai Clufano. Look, it's Kaike like me, but he's not a Gryffindor, he's a Hufflepuff. Hi, Kako. If a muggle managed to get into the Vanishing Cabinet, would they end up in Hogwarts? Because we know that a regular muggle would only see ruins if they got close to Hogwarts. I've been following you since way back when. Big hug, Kaikau. Thanks for the question, man. And you guys really like to ask questions that fry my brain, don't you? I really don't know if the Vanishing Cabinet would work with a muggle, okay? This is just my own guess. It's not official at all. It's just a guess. I don't know if it would work.
If it did work, well, the muggle would see Hogwarts. In ruins, just like it actually appears to muggles, right?
I think he would go completely crazy.
Yeah, for sure, he would. Rodrigo Cumerlato.
Hey, Kako. Hey, What I have is a short theory. In Prisoner of Azkaban, to me, Dumbledore was already planning to ask Hermione to go back in time from the very beginning. That's why he stalled the minister when they left Hagrid's house. And the other life he says can be saved is Sirius's. What do you think? It's not just a theory. It's not a theory. Here's the thing. The time travel in Prisoner of Azkaban, it causes a lot of confusion for people.
Because people always keep trying to find logic where there isn't any, because it's a paradox. A time paradox.
And a paradox is when impossible things happen, right? So no, there's no point in us looking for logic. Right there at that moment, during the time travel, what do we see? At first, before we know they went back in time, we see them in Hagrid's hut. In Hagrid's hut, there's a little stone being thrown, which isn't in the book. But that little stone bit was an added touch. But it was a brilliant addition by Alfonso Cuarón to visually show how that time travel worked. For example, they throw the little stone there without us knowing they've gone back in time. And it breaks, doesn't it? The vase breaks, right? So when Dumbledore goes to the hut and distracts them, Buckbeak escapes, right? Obviously. Because they had already set Buckbeak free, right? They had already freed Buckbeak, and that's how he escapes. And then, when Dumbledore goes there and tells them, right, after everything that happens, Dumbledore goes there and says to them, I think, we need more time and all that. 3 turns should be enough. More than one innocent life may be saved. It's just that he already knew Buckbeak had been saved. Because he was there and he witnessed it, And he knew that Buckbeak could only be saved if someone had gone back in time. Because the way Buckbeak was tied up there was no other way. They saw Buckbeak there, they went into the hut, spent a minute there, and when they came out, Buckbeak was already gone. So he knew that had happened. But then comes the question, right? A lot of people ask, but how did it happen first? Who went back in time first? There's no such thing. There's no one who went back first. There's no first time. There's the cycle. It always happens. That's how time travel works in Prisoner of Azkaban. So, Buckbeak was never killed. He always escapes. Harry cast the Patronus to save himself. How could Harry have cast the Patronus to save himself if he hadn't already gone back in time? And we see this before we even know that he goes back in time, So it seems confusing, and it really is a little bit. But that's how time travel works in Prisoner of Azkaban. It's a really cool paradox, known as the bootstrap paradox. The events don't have a beginning. They're connected through a cycle. And it's really crazy, because our minds want to find logic. But it doesn't help, because your brain will melt if you try. So yes, Dumbledore stalls there in the hut exactly because of that. But the point is, there is no beginning, The next question is from Guilherme Aguilian Chanara. Hello, how are you? I'm good. I'm not sure if it's Jillian or Gillian, but let's get into it. How are you, Kako? I'm good. Why on earth did Hagrid bring Grop near a school with children and Dumbledore allowed it? I don't know. If he ran out of the forest and ended up hurting someone, did Hagrid have full control over him? I have nothing against giants. Katarina is really cute.
Well, it's good that you have nothing against giants, right? Look, Hagrid, we've already gone through, 2026. Next year, it will be 30 years since the first Harry Potter book was released.
Plenty of time for us to accept that Hagrid was really clueless when it came to magical creatures, right? To dangerous beings. Hagrid was clueless, right?
Dumbledore also put an absurd amount of trust in Hagrid.
Because he knew that Hagrid had his heart in the right place. But yes, it was indeed dangerous. But Hagrid did have some control over the situation.
Mariana. Hello, Kako. Hello. I have a technical question. Look, a technical question.
In our real life, and I believe in almost every country, everyone is required by law to have basic education.
How does the Muggle government somehow know that wizards have completed basic education? They don't know about wizard schools.
Man, wizards aren't people who are in the Muggle system. Let's start there. Now, are we talking about Muggleborns? Muggleborns usually attend primary school like normal before they get the Hogwarts letter and are told they're wizards. So they finish the mandatory basic education there, right?
And then, I don't know, maybe after that when they go to a school, to Hogwarts or any other magic school, there must be something like, I don't know, they went to study at a boarding school somewhere far away, went to study somewhere else. But wizards aren't in the Muggle system, so there's no reason to worry about that, Vander Ramos. Would it be possible to have a Fantastic Beasts series that leads up to Harry Potter? I love the stories thanks to you, who made me imagine different worlds. Thank you so much for your kindness. I'd love a Fantastic Beasts series covering the timeline up to Harry Potter's start, That would be really cool. But I think it's unlikely to happen. The next question is from Navio de a Navio de Beauxbatons. Ship of Beauxbatons. Beauxbatons has a carriage, not a ship. Durmstrang is the one with a ship. Hey, Kako, all good? My question is, why did Filch side with Umbridge in Order of the Phoenix if he was a Hogwarts staff member? Was he under the Imperius Curse? Hugs. No. Filch was not under the Imperius Curse. No. And we see a lot of that in real life. People who defend those who want to take away their own rights. That's very common. In real life, it happens, okay? It happens in real life.
So it's just because Filch was completely frustrated and ignorant.
Simply because he was a squib, right? He had a certain bitterness that went beyond his common sense, so he ended up just supporting something that was against himself. Renata, Kako, I have a question. I don't remember if you've already answered this. Did Hagrid get the motorcycle from Sirius before Voldemort killed the Potters? Because when Hagrid says at the beginning to Dumbledore that he borrowed it from him, nobody knew Sirius was innocent. He gets it afterwards. But at that moment when he gets it, it's before Sirius corners Pettigrew and all that, right? And before all of Pettigrew's setup happens. At that moment, Hagrid had no idea that Sirius was the secret keeper, or anything like that. The one who knew was Dumbledore, right? But up until then, for Dumbledore to go and say, hey, wow, you took the bike with Sirius, he's the one to blame. I don't think that's really Dumbledore's style. He does his own investigating on his own, right? As Dumbledore himself says, he doesn't usually put all his eggs in one basket. So, if Hagrid didn't know that Sirius was the secret keeper, Dumbledore wouldn't have any reason to tell him. Like, look, Sirius probably betrayed the Potters. Yeah, that's what happened, you know? And then, he just takes the information from Hagrid, wise as he is, and says, so you met Sirius. He went to the Potter's house, right? Interesting. Like, he keeps the information to himself, you know? Let's go. Next question is from Severo Henrique. Love you, Kako. I follow your videos and everything. You're my idol. I'm a huge fan of Harry Potter. You make my days happier. I would appreciate it if you noticed me. Oh, Severus Henrique. Hugs, my friend. Thank you for the affection. I'm really happy to be talking to you right now. It's like I'm communicating with Batman. There's not necessarily a question. It's just a greeting from our friend Severus Henrique. Thank you, my friend Henrique. I'm happy. I admit, I wish I had Batman's money. Thank you. Thank you for the affection. Thanks. I am Batman. Alon Bastos said the following. Look, Kako, I'm a fan of your work. Thank you, bro. I'd like to know how Harry Potter became the owner of the Elder Wand when he disarmed Draco. If Draco was holding the wand he bought at age 11 in Diagon Alley. Cheers. A very valid question. Very fair. But just the fact that Harry disarmed Draco, regardless of which wand he was holding, the Elder Wand senses that it knows its master was subdued, was disarmed by someone the wand considers stronger. So that's why.
Manu Corsi. Kako, how are you? I'm good, and you? When an animagus dies in animal form, do they turn back into a human or stay as an animagus? I'm 10 years old and I love your channel. I watch all your videos. Thank you so much, Manu.
Thank you for the affection. Big hug to you.
I've already answered a question. I think this question. In some Papo Furado. But maybe it was a long time ago, because I don't even remember exactly which Papo Furado it was. I think it was in one of the first ones, so it's very fair for this question to come up again. Yeah, how do you become an animagus? It's a spell, right? That comes, of course, after the ritual is done for the first time and all, but it's a spell.
And some spells are undone when a person dies. So it could be that someone who dies in animagus form returns to their human form after death.
Or it could be that since the person is dead and can't reverse the spell, right? They're dead, there's no way they can do the spell, so they stay in that form. Both possibilities exist, right?
I can't say for sure which one it would be, because we don't have that information. But we can imagine based on what we know, using what we know about the wizarding world, right? There are spells that end when the wizard who casts them dies, right? And there are spells that last. So either one could happen. We would only know if this was officially confirmed. Raphael Felipe, can a wizard defend themselves from a gunshot with Protego? A gunshot, right. Man, let me tell you, any muggle weapon is nothing compared to wizard magic, man. So yes, wizards can defend themselves. VDC.
In Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, in the book, Harry gives Norbert to Charlie.
In Book 2, Chapter 4, Fred tells Harry about gnomes, and it says, Harry has never seen Charlie. That's correct. Harry doesn't meet Charlie in the first book. The ones who appear in the first book are Charlie's friends. Charlie can't go to Hogwarts to rescue Norbert. In the Harry Potter series, I think he will appear. I think they're going to change that and he'll show up. So maybe that will be changed. I actually think it's kind of fair, because poor Charlie didn't appear in any of the movies, right? In the series, he'll show up even where he didn't before. Denise. What would happen if Voldemort got a Dementor's kiss with the Horcruxes still intact? Another thing. It's just an observation.
In the Goblet of Fire movie, Wormtail cuts his hand without reacting, like he's slicing a vegetable. In the book, though, he writhes and cries in pain, which bothers me.
That's true. In the book, Wormtail is there writhing in pain, right? And in the movie, it doesn't even look like he had just cut his own hand off. About Voldemort, well, the Dementor's kiss on Voldemort. That's a really crazy question, man. It's really wild, because it's also really hard to answer.
We can't answer that with certainty, because there's no information. What I can say is what I think.
I think that, well, by sucking out Voldemort's soul, which is the main part, Voldemort needs the main part of his soul to survive, right?
I think that by sucking out the main part, which is the part that, when Voldemort's body is destroyed, that part stays on Earth. It stays hidden there in Albania.
I think that the other Horcruxes become useless, you know? Because that main part is necessary.
It's the main part of Voldemort's soul. He can only return with that main part, because it's not like he comes back using the Horcruxes. Like, wow, I'm going to use this Horcrux. I used it up. And then, the soul that was in that Horcrux, the piece of soul that was in that Horcrux is used. It's not like that. The Horcruxes work like anchors, right? It's not like, when he comes back, he uses one. He uses all of them, you know? He uses all of them. They're all what keep him tied to life.
In this case, if his main soul was sucked out by the Dementor's kiss, I think there's no way out, my friend.
I think the soul would just be sucked out, and Voldemort would be left there, just an empty shell, vegetating. That's what I think, of course. But we can also consider the possibility that the Dementor's kiss might not be effective, and the Dementor wouldn't be able to suck out the soul, precisely because parts of it are bound to the earth. I don't know, right? I don't know. This is complete speculation. Both answers are complete speculation. You tell me what you think. Chris Junqueira. Kako, you're amazing. Thank you. I have 2 questions.
All right, since it replaces the removed duplicate, everything's fine, and it still counts as no questions.
Why don't you make a video about the story of Albus Potter? Well, I'll answer the first question, because he's really annoying. Just kidding. I did one about Scorpius, and I'm planning to do it. Actually, I was planning to do one about Albus, yes. But since I did one about Scorpius and their stories are very parallel, right? Because of the cursed child, I ended up giving it some space so the videos wouldn't be too close together.
Because the videos will end up being a bit similar, you know? But I do intend to make a video about the story of Albus Severus Potter.
2. Second question. Why aren't there new stories about the new generation of Harry Potter? There was only the cursed child, and then nothing else. Well, man, that's not up to me. That's up to the author. Why didn't she want to make more? Why did she simply not want to continue? Maybe because the reception of the cursed child as a story wasn't that good, right? People who watch the play, everyone who watches the play says, wow, it's amazing, really. Man, the effects are wonderful. But people who haven't seen the play always think it's bad, says it's messed up, that anyway, it's a fanfic. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's why. Although she wasn't even the one who wrote it, right? The cursed child. So honestly, I don't know. Next question. Rodrigo De Luca, look, there he is again. Hi, Kako. I know it wasn't in Voldemort's character to do that. But suppose he had shot baby Harry with a revolver. Would the bullet turn around and hit Voldemort? I pictured those cartoon scenes where the bullet goes teach and just stops like that.
Man, anything Voldemort tried to do against Harry wouldn't work because of the protection. If it was with a sword, if it was with a knife, if it was with a gun, if it was, I don't know, anything, it wouldn't work.
Now, if the bullet would turn around and come back at him, I think that's very unlikely. What could happen is that it might, like, ricochet, you know? Like, hit and bounce off to the other side, because Harry had that protection. But we would only know if it happened, right? It's very likely that whatever he tried wouldn't work. Game Oak, Game Carvalho. Based on the idea of the butterfly effect, would it be possible that, instead of the monster, when Voldemort asked for a Death Eater or a house elf, the one who offered was Lucio with Dobby? If so, How do you imagine the story, since he doesn't seem to care about house elves like Regulus does? Man, any little thing we do differently in a story makes a huge difference, right? As you mentioned, the butterfly effect means even a small change could make everything different. What would that be like? Well, probably Dobby would stay there to die, because Lucius wouldn't care at all. And the real locket would stay there. There wouldn't be any locket swap. So, when Dumbledore found out about the locket, he would just find the real locket there, you know?
I think that would be the biggest change of the whole thing. Nay, Tiago.
Hey Kako, how's it going? Good. And you? We know that in the process of becoming an animagus, the wizard's hair is used, right? What happens if the wizard is bald? Can he become an animagus? Cheers.
Carecophobia.
Bald phobia. Man, I think you can use body hair, so not just hair from the head, right? I think body hair works. Or maybe it's like the polyjuice potion, where any piece of the body works, you know? Anything that has the wizard's DNA.
Although they use the mandrake leaf soaked in saliva, right? Saliva already has DNA, so I don't know.
Maybe it works for the same reason. Someone else who didn't put their name sent this. Hey Kako, how's it going? I'm good. And you?
In your opinion, if wizard parents homeschool their children until a certain age, but then decide they want their child to go to Hogwarts after age 11, can they? Cheers.
No, I think the age to enter Hogwarts is 11 years old.
We have Hogwarts Legacy, where someone enters in the 5th year because they manifest magic late, but that's a different story, a whole other thing.
At Hogwarts, there's a rule. You have to send the reply letter in the 1st year. After that, I don't think it's possible for a student to start. After that, the parent will have to take care of the education, you know? If you don't want to start at the beginning of the school year, in the 1st year, well, now it's up to you, my child. Alex Bernardo. Hi, Kako. How are you? I was wondering if there are other ways to repel Dementors without having to cast the Patronus. Do you think the Protego Diabolica spell would be effective? Cheers. Your channel is the best. Thank you so much for the support, man. I hate that this camera, its ISO doesn't stay in one place, and I have to keep pressing it. Otherwise, it looks like there's a ghost here, see? Man, according to what Snape says in one of the Defense Against the Dark Arts classes, there is more than one way to repel a Dementor, not just the Patronus. But he doesn't say what those ways are. I don't know if Protego Diabolica would be able to repel it. Honestly, I can't give you an answer about that. LM Elm Costa. Hey Kako, how's it going? I'm good. Isn't Umbridge punished by the Ministry after all the evil things she did? Didn't they even send Dementors to attack Harry? Man, that just shows how the Ministry of Magic was problematic and corrupt, right? Umbridge manages to stay in the Ministry, even after all the stuff she did at Hogwarts. Like, she loses her position at Hogwarts, but she stays in the Ministry, man. It's bizarre, right?
And then, only after the war is she actually punished for her crimes when she was in charge of the Muggleborn Registration Commission. So she was imprisoned for the war crimes she committed. Rosanna Orosanatales. Hi, Kako. I hope you're well. I'm good. Thank you.
If the polyjuice potion changes everything about a person, even their voice, why does Fleur's voice still have a French accent during the Battle of the Seven Potters?
Or is there an exception for different nationalities? I love your channel. Kisses to your family. In this case, it's an accent, not the voice. How someone speaks is just their way of speaking. She will speak in her own way with the other person's voice.
But accent has much more to do with the way someone speaks than with the tone of their voice, right?
So that's why. Vinicius Santos. I was rewatching some scenes and a question came to my mind.
In the second movie, Chamber of Secrets, why didn't Dumbledore extract Harry's memory and view it in the pensive when Lucius Malfoy went and put the diary in Ginny's cauldron and used that as evidence? It would be, it doesn't make sense in Harry Potter LOL. Just 2 LOL. He actually put it in LOL. Well, in the book, I've got the book open here. Lucius Malfoy and Senior Weasley get into a fight there, right? There's all that confusion. And then, there's this part here, let me read it. Senior Malfoy was hit in the eye by an encyclopedia of frogs. He was still holding Gina's old book about transfiguration. He threw it at her, his eyes shining with malice. Here, take your book. It's the best your father can give you. And freeing himself from Hagrid's hand, he called Draco and they left the store. You should have pretended he didn't exist, Arthur, said Hagrid, almost lifting Mr. Weasley off the ground as he straightened his robes. Rotten to the core, the whole family, blah. The assistant seemed to want to stop us from leaving, but he barely reached Hagrid's waist. and he seemed to think two things. They hurried up to the street, the Grangers trembling with fright, and Mrs. Weasley beside herself with fury. In the book, at this part, it doesn't say that. It's just that in the movie it's very visual, right? In the movie, it shows Lucius taking it, and when he gives it back, there's another book. And Harry sees this, right?
Here in this part, in the book. That's in the movie, right? Here in this part, in the book? No.
Now, let's see at the end, Harry says. Lucius Malfoy turned against him. How should I know how that girl got the diary? Because you gave her the diary, said Harry at Flourish and Blots. You took the old Transfiguration book she was carrying and slipped the diary inside it, didn't you? He saw Lucius Malfoy's white hands clench and unclench. Prove it, he hissed. No one can do that, said Dumbledore, smiling at Harry. Not now that Riddle has disappeared and all. So Harry didn't see it happen. What he's saying is that it was Lucius Malfoy. We know it really was. But Harry didn't see it happen. So it wouldn't help to look at Harry's memory to see whether Lucius really put it there. We know he did it, but Harry doesn't see it happening, okay? In the movie he does. In the movie it really happens. You're right. But in the book, well, here it's clear that he doesn't see it. There's no moment mentioning that he saw Lucius doing it. Just him saying that he did. Deep Poplar said the following. Hello, Kako. How are you? I'm good. And you? In the third year at Hogwarts, Harry was worried about being arrested for making Aunt Marge turn into a balloon, correct? In the fifth year, Malfoy hoped Harry would be arrested after he conjured the Patronus to defend himself from the Dementors, right? Can underage wizards be imprisoned in Azkaban? Man, I think they can, okay? Now, for making his aunt turn into a balloon, an accidental spell, I don't think so, you know? In the fifth year, it could have happened, because the Ministry wanted to mess with Harry, right? So maybe he even would have been. But it's very difficult. Rodrigo Correa. Hey! In the Harry Potter books, we saw how a child spoiled by their parents becomes, to a certain extent, a reflection of them. Examples are Dudley and Draco. Very well. Do you think if Harry had received the same love as Dudley from the Dursleys, he would have been spoiled and the story would be different? Absolutely. First, because what the Dursleys think is love, what they are giving to their son, isn't really love, and it completely spoils Dudley, right?
And Dumbledore himself says that, in Half-Blood Prince, when he's at the Dursleys' house. Dumbledore wants Harry to grow up away from the spotlight, because he was famous and all, so that it wouldn't spoil him.
So he wouldn't grow up thinking he's a little prince, like Draco did, right? So, for sure, that could definitely influence the way Harry was and change the story somehow. Pedro Duhacek. Good morning, Kako. Good morning. My question is this. Are spells universal? Like, in Brazil, do Accio and Avada Kedavra work at Castelo Bruxo? Or does each country have its own spells in its own language?
Look, I believe that's something that really varies. I think countries can have their own spells. Yes.
But many spells come from Latin, so I think that, right? Many of them, I'm not saying all, but many of them come from Latin. Actually, not come from, but many spells are derived from Latin.
So, I believe that since our language, Portuguese, is derived from Latin, I think many spells must be similar, you know?
But probably, yes. There must be some spell out there that's in another language, in a different way, with another form.
But it also doesn't stop a Brazilian, for example, a Portuguese speaker, from saying Avada Kedavra and having the spell work. All right, Bruno Colley said. All right, and you? I got curious. In the book Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, there's Valentine's Day, when Gilderoy Lockhart sends some dwarves with wings to deliver love cards to Harry.
He gets it. The dwarf reads it aloud, and Draco claims Ginny sent it. Was it really her? Yes. It was Ginny. She says his eyes are as green as little frogs, right? His black hair, like I don't know what. Leon Oliveira. Hi, Kako. How are you? I'm good too. This is my first time joining Papo Furado, so I just want to compliment you on the channel. But I wanted to know why Fred and George opened their shop while everyone else was closing down. Yeah, what were the others afraid of that they weren't? I'm a fan of the channel. Thank you very much for your question, Leon. It's really great to have you here with us on Papo Furado. And Fred and George, they had something, you know? Do you know what Fred and George had? Boldness and joy. They were bold. While everyone else was closing out of fear, they were making black market lollipops. Fake black market stuff, you know? They were selling like challenging things there. So They really weren't afraid. They thought that, they knew that people at that time needed to laugh too, needed a reason for joy, needed to keep going somehow. So, they stayed there, without fear. Man. Let's all at Granger. Hey, Caro. All good? All good. And you?
Before the question, I'd like to say that following your family routine on Instagram makes me really happy and heals my inner child.
Thank you for the affection. Well, how does the basilisk know that the victim is a mudblood? Isn't it just a derogatory title? Yes, it's a derogatory title.
There's no difference between a wizard who comes from an entirely wizarding family and a wizard born to muggles. No biological difference. They're the same kind of wizard.
And the basilisk only follows an order, actually, right? So it knew who to attack because it was commanded, directed to attack that person.
In that case, in the Chamber of Secrets, since Gina was writing everything in the diary to Tom Riddle, and Tom Riddle was learning things about that time, he knew who the Muggleborns were. So that's why he attacks. He tells Gina to attack, right? In this case, those people. And then Gina commanded the basilisk, basically, possessed by Voldemort. She commanded the basilisk, and it attacked those people. Magic Miller. Hey, Kako, congratulations on your work. Thank you. We know it's hard to do magic without a wand. Right. It's really hard.
And can a wizard conjure objects like Harry did with the broom in the Triwizard Tournament? Would it be possible to learn only the spell to conjure without a wand?
And then, conjure the wand from where he kept it? Yeah, I understood that you meant like how Harry summoned the broom, right? There. It's not that he conjures, but doing it that way. Conjuring instead of summoning. Look, I don't think it's impossible. I think the wizard can, yes, make the broom materialize. Conjured right there, you know, coming from a place he knows. First, he needs to know where the broom is and cast this spell, but it must be very, very complex. Now, conjuring his own wand, I don't know. I don't know if the wand works the same way as other magical artifacts. If it could be conjured, but I believe it can too. I don't think there's any restriction for that. But, man, you can say that if there are 2 wizards in the world who can do it, that's a lot, you know? If 2 or 3 can do it, that's a lot. I just made up that number, so, Felipe, okay? Felipe Caro's 4,959. Hey, Kako, how's it going? Hey, man, I'm good. And you? Is there any explanation for how Bagshot's aunt was still alive up until Deathly Hallows, before Nagini took over her body?
She was already old when Dumbledore was at school. Grindelwald's great-aunt. It's wild to think it was a philosopher's stone or something. Wizards just live much longer, right?
Armando Dippet, who was the headmaster before Dumbledore, lived over 200 years without a philosopher's stone or anything like that. So, some wizards really do end up living a long time. I don't know if Batilda did anything, if she somehow used the philosopher's stone to live a bit longer. But really, she was very old indeed, and I think the fact that she was Grindelwald's great-aunt and already a bit older while Dumbledore was still a teenager, you know, still in school, doesn't mean much. A lot. I mean, because she could be old, but not like, wow, super old. Like, I don't know, she could just be older, you know, like, I don't know, around 60 years old or so. So I don't think it would be that strange for her to be there in 1997 at a little over 100 years old, you know? Dumbledore himself was 116 when he died. Enzo Felix. How are you? Congratulations on your work. Your channel is great. Thanks. How was the Battle of the Astronomy Tower? Do you want all the details? How was it? Harry comes back with Dumbledore from the cave, right? And arrives at Hogwarts. And the Death Eaters invade because Draco lets them in. So there's a bit of chaos going on there. Spells are flying everywhere. Some Death Eaters die because one Death Eater hits another with Avada Kedavra, and he misses the target and hits the Death Eater. Bill Weasley gets bitten by Greyback. It's total chaos there, man. Yeah, it's really wild, but it's a battle that goes by really quickly, you know? This here, of course, was a very shallow overview. I recommend you read the book, you won't regret it, okay? Bia Viana. Hi, Kako. How are you? I'm good. First of all, your work is amazing. I've been following you for years. Heart. Thank you very much.
My question is, why did Snape stay by Dumbledore's side after Lily's death? He switched sides to protect her. After she died, what made him stay with Dumbledore?
Well, I think mainly his word, right? He made a promise, so he was keeping it. And I also think because of remorse, regret, he saw it as a mission to maybe not redeem himself, but to make up for his mistake, you know? Rodrigo Guerra. Hello, Mr. Cardassi. I've been a fan of the channel for years. Thank you, my friend. I was rereading the books and came across a pretty cheeky joke Ron made to Lila Brown during a divination class in the Goblet of Fire. Had you noticed it before? Chapter 13. Can I take a look at your Uranus too, Lila? Yeah, I had noticed that cheeky joke from Ron. It makes more sense in English, right? He says it like this. Can I take a look at your... How does he say it? Your Uranus. Like, it's kind of a pun, like your anus, you know? Yeah, Ron is really cheeky. He makes some pretty lame jokes sometimes. Fabio Carreno. Hey, Kako, how's it going? If a Muggle-born is prevented by their parents from going to Hogwarts when they come of age, knowing they're a wizard but without any information, is there any way to contact the Ministry? And would they have a chance to learn to control their magic? Man, I think it's really hard to imagine any Muggle parent not wanting their wizard child to learn to control their magic. You know, to study and learn how to control it.
Because all the downsides of this are explained when the wizard visits them to tell them.
Now, if they don't, if the kid doesn't study, if they're forbidden from going to Hogwarts, the parents have that right, okay? But for sure, if he's a wizard, he'll be able to contact the Ministry of Magic. He'll be able to try to control it. Not at Hogwarts, but he'll be able to try, I don't know, to get private lessons with someone else, with another wizard, or try to improve himself in some other way, okay? Hogwarts isn't the only place to learn to control it. Here, Hogwarts is for kids, right? From 11 to 17 years old. But I think there must be some way. Yes, I'm saying I think so, okay? It's not certain. I think there must be some way. Yes, the problem is that if this child doesn't learn to control it, they'll have magical outbursts and things will get out of hand. And probably the Ministry will need to step in before that happens, you know?
Lufana Floor. Hi, Kako. How are you? I'm good too. Love to you and your family. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask 2 questions.
What do you think about the cursed vaults that appear in the game Hogwarts Mystery? And how excited are you for the series? Well, first, I'll answer the easiest one. I'm really excited for the series. I can't stop thinking about it every day. I go to sleep thinking about this series. I wake up thinking about this series. I'm really excited. Now, about the cursed vaults in Hogwarts Mystery, I think the stories in these little games are a bit too shallow. So they don't really appeal to me, you know? I know it's extra game content and all, but I don't think it's very cool. I prefer it when it's something a bit deeper. Even in Hogwarts Legacy, the story is kind of shallow too. It's not something very in-depth, right? So, it's cool as supplemental content that helps expand the universe.
But it's not something super cool, no, in my opinion. SH Martins _ Gryffindor. Hi, Kako. How are you? I love your channel. Thanks for the amazing work. Heart emoji. Thank you so much for the affection.
Rereading the Goblet of Fire, I think maybe Ludo Bagman was under the Imperius Curse. In Chapter 9, the trio finds him in the forest, apparently disoriented and not knowing what was going on. Is that possible? Man, I think you got confused. It's not Ludo Bagman they find disoriented in the forest, it's Bartok Crouch Sr. I don't know if that's it, if we're talking about the same thing, okay? Let me check here. In the Goblet of Fire. It's after they find... No, I'm sure, it's not. They don't find him in Chapter 9. Okay, alright. In Chapter 9, no. Alright. I get what you're saying. In Chapter 9, it's at the Quidditch World Cup. Hold on, alright, yeah, they meet the same Ludo Bagman. But no, he's stunned just because, man, the dark mark simply appeared in the sky. Total chaos. Like, man, total panic there. That's the only reason he's stunned. He's not under the Imperius Curse. No. It doesn't even make much sense, right? To think that he was. Because he was, right? He was part of the organization and all, but he was just kind of crazy. He wasn't under the Imperius Curse. No. Anna Ju said the following. Hi, Kako. How are you? I'm good. And you? I wanted to know your opinion about how Hogwarts has adapted to technology nowadays. Did they stop using letters and start using Wi-Fi? Do they bring cell phones and laptops to school? Was that allowed? Do students use ChatGPT? No, man, that didn't happen at Hogwarts. Hogwarts. Technology doesn't work at Hogwarts. These technologies don't work. Even with progress, wizards have magic. They don't need these technologies. They're completely irrelevant to them, you know? Maybe Muggleborns who are introduced to that reality early in life might even have social media, cell phones and all that. But at Hogwarts, it doesn't work. At Hogwarts, it wouldn't be very useful, right? So they can't take that to Hogwarts. It doesn't work. The spells interfere with the technology. And honestly, I think for wizards, it doesn't make a difference.
Man, they have things that fly. Brooms. They can communicate through fireplaces just by putting their head in the fire, you know? Like, what is a cell phone, you know? What is ChatGPT to them? Well, they have countless things to study there, and they can make all sorts of things happen. Come on.
Come on, what a crappy life muggles have, man, compared to wizards. Guigomies. Hey, Kako, I'm a big fan of yours. Thanks, man. Even though I only started watching your channel last year. No problem. A fan is a fan. But anyway, my question is, can a couple of animagi in animal form get pregnant? If so, is the child born human or animal? Creative question, right? Man, I think that if both of them mate in animal form, there's a good chance the child would be born in animal form. Because, using werewolves as an example, we know that werewolves, which is something very rare to happen, okay? If werewolves, both female, the female and male werewolf, mate during the full moon while they're transformed, the woman will give birth to a litter of wolves. Wolves, not werewolves.
Intelligent wolves, much more intelligent than usual. They're not as aggressive as werewolves, okay?
Yeah, actually, there's a litter like that was released into the forest with Dumbledore's permission. In the Forbidden Forest. That's why there's a rumor about werewolf wolves in the Hogwarts forest. It doesn't really make sense to have werewolf wolves, right? Because the werewolf is, most of the time, human. There aren't humans living inside the forest, right? Anyway, based on that, maybe it's also possible in animagus form. But these questions, huh? Gabriel Den. Hey, Kako, congratulations on keeping the Harry Potter discussions alive. Especially for me, since I don't have many friends to talk about it with. Oh man, no.
We're here. We're together, man. Come here, join us, and let's listen together.
Second, if in Harry Potter one Dumbledore wished for a room of requirement that could never be found again to hide the Philosopher's Stone, would it work? Man, that's a really big hypothetical question, right? I don't think so, because the room of requirement always shows up for whoever discovers it. And it'll find a way. Somehow, if someone wishes to find something that's hidden there, yeah, maybe they could find it, you know? So I don't think it would work. No, because just like Voldemort, he tried to hide the Horcrux there, thinking no one would find it, and Harry just finds it, you know? So I don't think so. I don't think it would work. That's what I think, okay? Augustus. Hey, Kako Augustus Rookwood. Hey, Kako, looking at your lists of mistakes and things that don't make sense, do you think it would be cool if they fixed some of those points in the series? Or should they be faithful even to the mistakes? Thanks. Hugs to your family. Man, I think there are some little mistakes there that are really silly, that don't make a difference in the story.
But there are things that would be nice if they fixed. For example, the one I mentioned about Tonks, which happens here in the 5th book, her using magic there and all. Or maybe they could find a way to explain it, you know? I think that would be cool, yeah, some of them, not all. Felipe, hi. Kako, how are you?
Keiko, I have 2 questions for you, my friend. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, those 2 Quidditch teams that are shown there in Diagon Alley, are they the teams that appear in Goblet of Fire at the World Cup? The second question is, why does Harry's scar only hurt when he's at Hogwarts? Man, no, those teams there, if I'm not mistaken, are the Chudley Cannons whose uniform is orange, and the other one, if I'm not mistaken, is green, right? I can't remember off the top of my head now if those 2 uniforms are green. Let me check here. Yeah, that's it. It's orange. It's the Chudley Cannons uniform. And this striped green one here, I think it might be the uniform of the one with the clover. What's the name, man? Hold on. I think it's Kenmare. I don't know. It's not Kentucky. What's Kentucky? That has nothing to do with it. I think it's the Kenmare Kestrel's uniform. I think it is. The Chudley Cannons is the orange one, so there's no way. But I think the one that appears in the movie, the striped one here, is exactly this one. Kenmare Kestrels, I think. Okay? I think so. You can even see the pennants in that part of the movie, right there. There are the pennants, the Quidditch pennants. Wanna see? There's Montrose Magpies. Wanna see? Look at this. There's Puddlemere United, Montrose Magpies, and Chudley Cannons. Is it Chudley Cannons? No? No, it's Ballycastle Bats. Those are the 3 pennants there. And the uniform is from the Chudley Cannons, that's right. The other is from the Kenmare Kestrels. They're teams from the British Quidditch League. The teams that appear in Goblet of Fire at the World Cup are the national teams of Ireland and Bulgaria, alright? Now, why does Harry's scar only hurt when he's at Hogwarts? Actually, it hurts when something is going on with Voldemort. When Voldemort is angry, upset, feeling something, or even excited, Harry feels the scar, alright? It's not necessary. He just happens to be at Hogwarts most of the time. But not only there. Edu Gessler says, "Kako, how's it going?" Voldemort wanted to do something with the Founder's artifacts, but he couldn't get Gryffindor's sword. But we forget about the sorting hat. What would happen if it was made into a Horcrux? Would it have any influence on the sorting? Imagine, only Slytherin. Slytherin, 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 Slytherin. Man, I don't think the hat... Actually, no. Voldemort wouldn't choose the hat to be a Horcrux. But if he used it right, if he managed to turn it into a Horcrux, maybe it could influence things somehow, especially the hat, which is an artifact with a very specific kind of magic, right? It's very sentient and all that. So maybe it would affect things. Yeah. How? I don't know. Sousa Black, the Lords of the Moon, Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs have 2 questions here. What was Newt doing at Hogwarts when he was spotted on the Marauders' map? And when Nagini went to the castle, did she show up on the map? Well, that thing about Newt being in the castle on the Marauders' map is just an Easter egg. It's only in the movies. But I like to imagine that he might have gone there to talk to Dumbledore, to try to help with the Hippogriff case. That would be really cool, right? Yeah, that's something I like to imagine. It doesn't mean it actually happened. Yeah, if she would show up on the map, well, maybe. Maybe she does. I don't know.
Because if Wormtail, that's Peter Pettigrew, right? Who was an animagus and transformed, showed up, his name appeared. She, who was once human and is now a snake, maybe she would show up too. Maybe. I'm not sure.
But I think in Deathly Hallows, when they get the map to check, Nagini's name isn't there, right? Although the invasion hadn't started yet. There was. When Hermione and Ron go to the Chamber of Secrets, they use the Marauders map for that. So it doesn't mention, and it doesn't mention Nagini's name there. So it's still open. Edu Henrique. The camera's battery is running out. It's been recording for 98 minutes. I'm trying to get through as much as I can before it dies, so I can read the questions here. So let's go.
Edu Henrique. Crabbe and Goyle never remembered anything after they woke up from their sleep in the Chamber of Secrets. And Malfoy never found out why they behaved differently? Well, Crabbe and Goyle were 2 blockheads.
I doubt they even understood what happened to them. And I think Malfoy was also so overconfident, so arrogant that he didn't even find it strange, you know? It wasn't like, wow, I don't think he ever thought that Harry and Ron would be able to fool him like that, you know? Real Louise. Kako, what's up? What's up? Why didn't Harry make a new wand after he cleared his name? Man, that's a really good question. But, like, his wand was already hidden in the umbrella. He could already use it. So I think he just didn't make another one because of that. Dandy Dan Nemo. Kako, what's your personal opinion about Barty Crouch Jr.? He seems really OP to me. I felt like he was the most useful, versatile, and complete Death Eater as a wizard, because he did things no one else was capable of. If I were Voldemort, I would have feared his development. Yeah, I'm a fanboy. Sorry, big hug. Yeah, Barto Crouch Jr. was really tough, I agree with you. He was a very complete Death Eater. And he was really dangerous, so he was like, very capable. Maybe not to surpass Voldemort there because Voldemort was kind of insane, right? But I think he was a great Death Eater. He was really complete. Diego de Duarte 6339. Kako, if Voldemort is a descendant of the Peverils, inherited the Resurrection Stone, and Harry also inherited the Invisibility Cloak, then Harry and Voldemort are distantly related, aren't they? Let's take them to Ratinho for a DNA test. Just kidding. Yes. Voldemort and Harry are distantly related? Yes. Harry is a descendant of Ignotus Peveril, part of Harry's lineage. And Voldemort, part of his lineage, descends from Cadmus Peveril, along with the Slytherin family. So they are distantly related, yes. Real Louise sent another question. Hey Kako, how are you? I work in social assistance. I spent time with troubled children, and Dumbledore's attitude toward Voldemort is as if he was messed up from the start. Do you think Riddle wouldn't have become what he is if Dumbledore had been kinder? Man, no, because of course everything changes, right? Anything can change someone's behavior. But the thing with Voldemort isn't that Dumbledore mistreated him. Dumbledore noticed the way he was right from the first contact and kept an eye on him. Dumbledore didn't mistreat him, didn't treat him badly. He just didn't let himself be fooled by him. Tom Riddle was really well liked at school by a lot of teachers. He even managed to fool all of them. But Dumbledore didn't neglect him. Didn't treat him badly or anything like that. He just kept an eye on him, you know? And Tom Riddle, as clever as he was, knew he couldn't fool Dumbledore. That's why he fears Dumbledore, you know? So in this case, I don't think so. I don't think it would have been much different. Caroline Camargo. Hi, Kako. I love your work and your family is the best. Thank you for the affection. I had a question about the book Order of the Phoenix when Hagrid goes to the Giants and rescues his brother. He said he couldn't use magic on that trip back. But if he was cleared in Chamber of Secrets, couldn't he use his wand again? So, this thing about Hagrid is kind of confusing really, because he is, in fact, cleared in Chamber of Secrets, you know? It's proven that he wasn't behind the attacks. Now, I don't know if his innocence is proven in the case of when he was expelled. It should be. It should be. That's the point. It should be. I don't know if that's proven, you know? Like, look, he had nothing to do with it. It wasn't Hagrid this time, and it wasn't Hagrid before. That should have happened, right? Because then he could use magic again. Or maybe if he, I don't know, because he was expelled, even though it was unfair, he couldn't do magic because he was expelled too early and now he really couldn't. Anyway, many years had already passed, or he would need to do some kind of remedial method to catch up, you know? I think the ideal would be, honestly, as soon as his innocence was proven from when he was expelled, he should at least be compensated by the Ministry of Magic. I think he should have been compensated by the Ministry of Magic, yes. And he should have had the right to complete his studies. I think that should have happened to him, you know?
It should have, but it didn't. It didn't. Although, since he kept his wand hidden there and all, I think Dumbledore taught him some things on the side.
I can imagine Dumbledore doing that. That's just my guess, okay? And there, in the situation where he says, we were being watched and all, I think it's much more about being careful not to, since he knew that. You know, the Ministry was going after everyone who was connected to Dumbledore. So I think that's more of a precaution on his part, you know? Like, I can't use magic. You guys know I can't use magic, so it's kind of a precaution, because in fact, he was proven innocent. In the second book, it's clear that he wasn't the one who did it, right? Now he even becomes a professor, and he says, right, he says, thanks to you, to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. At the beginning of Prisoner of Azkaban, right there at the start of the first school year, he says, well, thanks to you for being able to prove it and all, right? So he should, yes, have permission to use magic. He should. So, in this part, I don't know. I say it again. I don't know if it's because he was specifically being watched and pursued there by the Ministry agents, that he and Madame Maxime avoid using magic and all, or if it's him himself for not being able to, for having been expelled, you know? Anyway, Joan Louise. Hey, Kako, how are you? I'm good. And you? I have a question that I remember commenting on all your videos about 6 or 7 years ago. Haha. Can a wizard use Avada Kedavra on themselves? Look at that. You commented this about 6 or 7 years ago. I remember clearly. You had this question. And it was yours, right? Yeah, I always avoided talking about this topic because, well, it's not a cool topic and we don't know. Whoever is watching us goes through different situations in life, right? So it's a topic I've always been very careful with and never wanted to mention. You know, I never wanted to go deeper into it. So, like, we don't have information about it, you know? We don't have information about whether it's possible. But, well, it's a spell that takes someone's life. So, maybe it can be used against the person themselves. And for those of you going through very difficult times, for those of you who feel the weight of the world and think there's no way out, call the Centro de Valorização à Vida. It's a 24-hour, 7 days a week service where there will be people to talk to you, to listen to you. You're not alone. Remember that. Seek help. Don't be ashamed. Don't think you're being a burden to other people. You're not. Seek help, okay? The number is 188, like I said. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can call, and you'll be assisted. The next one is from Aegean RR. Congrats on the channel, Kako. Thanks a lot. If Fred and George are on the same hand of the Weasley clock, what would happen if only one of them was in mortal danger? Look at that. What an interesting question, right? Man, if I'm not mistaken, the thing about Fred and George's hand being together is something from the movie, okay? It's not from the book. In the book, there are 9 hands, one for each child. As far as I remember, Here, look. Mrs. Weasley looked at the grandfather clock in the corner of the room. Harry liked that clock. It was completely useless if anyone wanted to know the time, but for other things, it was very informative. It had 9 golden hands, and each one was engraved with the name Weasley. There were no numbers on the dial, but instead, the places where each family member could be. So there really are 9 hands, 1 for each. That's in Goblet of Fire, okay? In Goblet of Fire, when it is described again. When Mrs. Weasley is looking at the clock. All right, so there are really 9 hands in the book. In the movie, both appear as one. Victor, who is not Crumb. Hey, Kako, all good? I have some questions about the Patronus. Can it be a magical creature? If so, can it be an evil creature, like a basilisk? If the wizard has a connection with it, can it be human? Since, biologically, humans are animals? Can it be extinct, like a dodo? Your question is really cool. And yes, they can be magical creatures, although they are rare. In that Pottermore test that people take, there are dragons. There are thestral patronuses. Yeah, Dumbledore's Patronus is a phoenix, so it can definitely be a magical creature. An extinct creature, I think maybe that's possible too. Now, a human, I don't think so.
Even if it's seen biologically as an animal, I don't think so, okay? There's no information about that. Knox. 28 Knox 2187. Hey, Kako, how are you? I'm good. And you?
What would happen if someone crossed the veil at the Ministry of Magic, had unfinished business, and was afraid of death? Would they go to the afterlife or become a ghost? And what if a ghost crossed it? Could he talk about what's on the other side, or would he be stuck? Well, man, that's completely hypothetical, okay? We don't have any information. What do I think would happen? If someone dies and becomes a ghost, that's what they'll be. But that doesn't mean they'll know what's on the other side.
Because the ghost doesn't know what death is. The impression stays behind, right? His impression of what he was in life stays behind.
And if a ghost goes through the veil, I believe there's no other side for him.
He will go through and he will come out the other side, which is the visible side for everyone in the room. Like the veil, right? There's the arch, which is the veil. And then whoever goes through alive dies.
But whoever is already dead and goes through will cross to the other side there. They won't necessarily go to the other side, to the afterlife. That's what I think, okay? I don't know. Mel DeMarque. Hey, Kako, how are you? I'm good. And you? I'm good too. And I have a question about the Order of the Phoenix. Why does Mrs. Weasley use the Doxycide on the biting fairies instead of the freezing spell, like Hermione did in Chamber of Secrets? And how did Remus drink from the Black family's silver goblets, even though he's a werewolf? I love your channel. First, silver doesn't pose any danger to werewolves in the world of Harry Potter. Yeah, in fact, to heal a wound caused by a werewolf, you need a mixture of silver powder and dittany. It's actually good for them, on the contrary. About why she used Doxycide? It's because she had the product and wanted to use it actually, right? Just because Hermione used immobilizing spells doesn't mean everyone in the series has to use them. That was Hermione's approach. She used the immobilizing spell on the Cornish pixies, and that was it. Now, Mrs. Weasley had Faticida, so she used Faticida.
Honestly, there's not really a big reason why. They're just different choices. Josue Santos. Hi, Kako. How are you? I'm good. And you?
I've been following your channel for years, and this is my second question here. Thank you very much. How long does the Imperious Curse last? Does it have a time limit?
Can someone hit by it be controlled forever, or does it wear off? Is there a way to break the curse? Great question, man.
Because we can see that Harry has a greater resistance to the Imperious Curse during the lessons in Goblet of Fire, he manages to resist it. And in the cemetery itself, he also manages to resist when Voldemort casts the curse on him.
Now, this can also happen. It doesn't mean the spell has an expiration date, but the person under the curse can start to resist.
It really depends on 2 factors, both the caster and the person who is being controlled. You know, if the person manages to start resisting the amount of strength they have to resist it, they'll be able to break free from the curse somehow. But it's not easy, okay? This happens with Barto Crouch Sr., for example. He manages to escape, but he's already completely confused, totally out of it, from being under the curse for so long. Matthias Souza. Hi, do you know what object Erpo Sujo used to store part of his soul? A ring? A necklace? My friend, I can't tell you. There's no answer. Unfortunately, I don't know. I can't answer you. Marcio de Assis. Hey, Kako, how's it going? I've been following your channel for years and your work is simply fantastic. Thank you very much. The question is, after the Battle of Hogwarts, were all the wizards, especially the Golden Trio, awarded the Order of Merlin? I've always had this doubt.
Look, I don't know if all the wizards were, But I know that Minerva McGonagall, for example, has the Order of Merlin, and I think the trio does too. Let me check.
Look, we know that Lupin received it posthumously and Minerva received it too, but there's no confirmation that Harry received it.
We know that they were honored on the chocolate frog cards, Ron, Harry, and Hermione. That's right. For Harry, Ron, and Hermione, it's still unclear if they received it. They probably did receive it, but there's no confirmation, okay? What we do know is that they're on the chocolate frog cards. Rafa 16 Vieira. Hey, Kako. All good? All good. And you? First, I wanted to say it was great to see you at Comic-Con 2024. Thanks for the kindness. In Quidditch, the snitch ends the game. Are there other ways for the game to end, or is it really only with the snitch? If not, is there a record of the longest game? Man, you can end the game without the snitch as long as the captains come to an agreement. Or it depends on which tournament it is. For example, in the early World Cup qualifying matches, the games only last 4 hours. So, it happens that the golden snitch isn't caught, that there's no golden snitch being caught. And then, the team wins in case of a tie at the end there. If there's a tie, the game can end in a draw.
But in the end, the ranking there will be decided if there's a tie in points.
The team that caught more pomos, or if there's also a tie in catches, it's the team that had the fastest catches. It's the team, in this case, of the selection, right? Now, in other tournaments that aren't the World Cup, the captains can decide and end the match. Like, they decide to end it if that's the case. It's very rare for them to want to end it because they want to win. But if it's tied, they can decide to end the match, you know? So, that's how it can happen. And the record for the longest game is the one that lasted 3 months. I think 3 months. Yeah, there's even a Harry Potter TCG card, which is the 3-month match. That's the longest one there was. Camilla Petruccelli. Hey Kako, how are you? I'm good, and you? I love your work. Congratulations. Thank you. Why did the Order of the Phoenix work so hard to keep Voldemort from the prophecy? Would knowing it really change things? I feel like Arthur risked his life in the department for nothing. No, it actually mattered. Yeah, Voldemort wanted it. He really wanted to know about the prophecy, to fully understand it and see what he missed. And why was that so important, right? Yeah, but after it breaks, he kinda gives up. He says something like, well, it's broken, man. It's over. We're screwed. We'll have to find other ways, you know? He gets so obsessed with the Elder Wand that he basically forgets about the prophecy, even though it mattered to him. So, any progress he made in getting information about Harry was something that really had to be stopped. So, the Order of the Phoenix worked hard on that. The next question is from João Mateus. Hey, Kako. 2 questions. Did Snape, as an adult, have any kind of contact with Lily? Maybe he loved the memories with her more than he loved her herself, since people change. Did Dolores know Voldemort and Bellatrix personally? No, Dolores didn't. Dolores was just prejudiced and mean. She was the way she was, a well of prejudice. So, you see that she was so prejudiced that she aligned herself with Voldemort, even without being his follower.
And about Snape having contact with Lily in his adult life? Probably not, man.
Because after he called her a mudblood, Lily completely cut off her relationship with him and didn't accept his apology. So, they had no contact, at least in the story. That's what we know, right? Malice Rodriguez. Hi, Kako. Thanks for the opportunity to send questions. Not at all. I'm the one who should thank you for sending them. We saw that elf magic is different when Creature escaped from the cave, because Regulus told it to go back. If a wizard casts an unforgivable curse on an elf and its master orders it to resist, would it be able to? Well, I think those are different things, right? Him leaving a place that's protected from wizard apparition and managing to bypass that because he's an elf is different from resisting a curse, right? He can try to resist, yes. Will he succeed? That's another story. You can't resist a death curse. There's no way. Okay, the Cruciatus curse. If you order him to resist, he'll still feel the pain. It's not like resisting will cancel out the effect of the spell. He can try because of the order, but I don't know if he'll succeed. Daniel Filio. Why was the diary Horcrux so different from the others? It can persuade. Do you know if any other spell was used on the diary? Man, it's just that the diary, it's not just the Horcrux that's there, right? It's enchanted, exactly. It was already enchanted to persuade and all that. And it contains Tom Riddle's memories in there, right? Yeah, so besides that, there's the Horcrux. So it's the combination of both things. But the diary also has a lot of significance because it's a Horcrux, right? It's not just the persuasion spell at work. Rayanne, what happened to the house Sirius gave Harry? Did he sell it or do something else? Look, we don't have any official information about that. Okay? Yeah, Harry didn't want that house. He didn't have any good memories of that house. Exactly because Sirius felt trapped there. Because Sirius didn't have a good childhood there. When he inherits the house, he suggests they keep using it as the Order's headquarters since he doesn't want it. But Dumbledore says they can't, giving reasons why not. But knowing that Harry didn't care about that at all and he had money, so probably, I don't know what happened, man. He must have just let that house go. Kadu Bras. Hey man, Kako, I've been following your channel for many years, and you made me want to read Harry Potter as an adult, and it was the best thing I did. That's awesome, man. I'm glad to read that. My question is, do you think the wizarding world gets inspired by magical creatures to create and develop spells, like elves, phoenixes, thestrals? Man, that's a cool question. And well, maybe they do get inspired, right? We don't have any official mention of that, but who knows? Yeah, they could do that. There are a lot of creatures with really interesting magical properties, right? I believe that just like there are wizards who study animals, their way of life, and their properties, there must also be wizards who study this to apply it in some fields of magic. That would make a lot of sense, yes. Matthias Amidio. Do you think Harry's mother used ancient magic to protect Harry, like what exists in Hogwarts Legacy? Well, it's a fact that Lily used old magic. The ancient magic from Hogwarts Legacy? I'm not sure if it was necessarily that one, you know. We know that Hogwarts Legacy has this ancient magic, but it's a type of ancient magic. The protagonist has the gift to see traces of this ancient magic. It doesn't mean that the magic Lily used is that one, you know? She made a sacrifice, which is old magic, but not necessarily that one. Aline Pires. Could Harry have become an obscurial since his aunt and uncle disliked magic? I don't think so, because the main thing about being an obscurial is knowing what magic is and wanting to suppress it. Harry didn't know. He had no idea that he was a wizard. He didn't try to run away from it or hide it because he didn't even know what it was. He knew strange things happened to him, but up until then, that was all. It was a mystery to him. He really had no idea. But to suppress it to the point of having an obscurus inside him, no. Ana Vieira. Hi, Kako. How are you? I'm good. And you? I've always wondered how a werewolf changes from a normal human, like Lupin, to an animalistic form, like Greyback. Thanks for keeping the wizarding world alive. I love your work and appreciate your kindness. Wow, I'm practically on the floor with this chair already. Thank you so much for your kindness. Greyback, he doesn't just attack during the full moon. He attacks even when he's not transformed into a werewolf, just for the pleasure of attacking, you know? So he keeps becoming more like that. The more he lets the animosity take over him, the more he ends up that way. And our last question, finally, is from Gigi Lovegood. Igija Lovegood. Kako, forgive me if the question is repeated. No, I won't forgive you. A repeated question has never happened on Papo Furado, and it won't happen now. I binged all the Papo Furado episodes and didn't see anything. For example, I made a polyjuice potion. I served the glass on the counter and my cat ended up drinking it before I could stop him. Could something like that happen in reverse with Hermione? Or at most, would he just get sick? Look, I think your cat would get really sick, you know? Because the polyjuice potion doesn't work. It only works on humans, actually. That's why it goes wrong with Hermione. When she puts the cat hair in, right? And then that whole mess happens. But I don't know if the cat would end up looking kind of almost human, kind of distorted. I think he would just get sick, really. But I don't know, right? We have no idea what would happen. This side, this perspective, was never addressed. So that's it, my wizards. This was another special Papo Furado with 100 questions. If you sent your question, don't worry. It will show up here at some point.
Look, you saw that most of these here are from 2024, from the very end of 2024, beginning of 2025, my friends.
So, there are still a lot of questions to be answered, okay? And remember, repeated questions that are too close to the episode, there's no way around it. They go to the back, even if they were asked earlier. In this episode, there were several more recent questions that were repeated. Like, come on, in the last episode of Papo Furado, 100 questions that question was already asked. There's no way I can repeat that question in the very next episode. So, my friends, it goes to the back, alright? That's why I recommend watch the episodes before you send in your question. Don't keep waiting too long for it. But if you don't mind and want to wait, then that's up to you. Just a detail, guys.
Yeah, I need to remind you that even though the audience of this channel is mostly Harry Potter fans who grew up with the series and are now adults, there are also a lot of kids.
They have to watch here, especially because there are Harry Potter fans who are already parents. Like me, for example, and they watch with their kids.
So there are some trickier questions that you ask that I can't include in the episode. So just know that if you send a question and it's a bit heavier, it won't show up. Okay, guys? It simply won't show up.
I apologize for that, but it's out of respect for the audience that watches Calderon Furado, okay? There are kids who watch here too. So that's it. This is a family-friendly channel. I'll see you in the next episode here on Calderon Furado. Until then, mischief managed.